Luis.
Hi, good evening, all. How are we doing today?
Ay, ay.
Good
It's
evening.
bullet.
I'm good. How are
Good
you?
evening,
I'm
all is well.
I'm great, thank you.
Good
Hap-
evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Happy to see you all made it back safely. Hope that you had a productive week and time to digest all the stuff that we discussed last week. Hope that it resonates and that you're able to apply it in your institutions. Okay, so I got a lot of homework. So I was very pleased to see that from the start, many persons, was receptive and we had good questions. And it seems like from my first view of the homework, persons do understand and they do comprehend. So that is positive, very positive. So just before we jump into giving everybody the opportunity to share what their takeaway from last week is, we'll start with the newspaper because there's still quite a number of you not here as yet. And so we start with the newspaper. Is there anybody who read the newspaper who wants to share to get their 5% for this week?
Good afternoon, everyone. I honestly only read The Guardian, and the only thing that stood out to me was a real estate company had a 68% jump in sales. So I think that would be related to um us, especially how it's dealing with sales and international sales at that. So I think something like that is where we would have to be mindful of where these funds coming from to buy these homes in the Bahamas.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a positive as well. Just the fact that it's on the increase, Kelly, because a lot of young persons are having a very, very hard time, even finding pieces of property or even homes. So first we started with the crisis on the family islands. It's virtually impossible, like in Eleuthera, in Long Island, to find pieces of property in certain communities. Now it's switched like to Nassau, and where you can find property, they're just not affordable. Just really, really not affordable. So we definitely, the election is coming up. A lot of persons want to move away from paying rent. We see that rent has drastically, drastically increased due to like real property taxes and all these other taxes that the government has been enforcing. And so definitely when these MPs come around, these are the things that you want to voice, you are the middle class. It's virtually impossible to afford a home. And so something needs to happen. So it's good that it's on the increase. And whilst it's increasing, we really need to voice our opinion to make sure that, we can move out of our parents' home at a particular stage in our life. All right. So very good. Keep watching it. Normally, um, the organization, the Real Estate Association, they normally have very good articles in the paper. Of course, they are now considered, some of them are considered financial institutions. So those real estate companies that have a financial services arm or offer financial services to their customers, they are considered financial institutions and they fall under the Compliance Commission. So our newest regulator is the Compliance Commission, and they regulate real estate companies, law firms, accounting firms, and there are one or two jewelry stores downtown that all report into the Compliance Commission. All right, so it's good read. All right, thank you for that. Anybody else? Nobody need points? No, nobody?
I mean, I read it, but I didn't really see anything that caught my eye the past
Oh,
week.
now
I
whole
mean,
big nothing but in the Tribune or
I've
the
been checking
Index.
every day.
What about this in all this international news about Venezuela and Donald Trump? I'm taking over. Does anybody working offshore? No, y'all ain't following the international news?
I following our news.
Okay, what Joshua, what did you see in the news this week?
Well, it was actually our news in regards to the accountant, housekeeper, and the immigration in regards to the stealing.
Okay,
One of them being someone who works at Atlantis. Um, and I think they got bailed today, or they were remanded, but they received bail, and their next hearing is January 20th. As someone who I kind of worked with in regards to liaison with some information, so that was interesting. So
okay,
I got pulled in for that, but yeah, that was something interesting. I think they stole over $427,000 from a
yep,
particular person.
yep.
Um, so I need to find out more in regards to how they went about doing that.
Good read,
That's
Joshua.
good. One thing I did want to add that I'm not too sure if it's published in the news as yet, but our CEO, Gowan Bowe, he would have spoken with the Clearing Banks Association regarding the risk and the benefits of digital banking. And I know they would have sent it out to us and he would have discussed just even how when you're away, you can take a picture of the check and it'd be deposited to your account instantly. And he raised that, if you just taking a picture of the check, there's no way we actually verifying this check in person because you don't have that face-to-face customer reaction relationship to verify what you processing.
Okay, so that's a good read as well, and you should read up on that to see all the risks associated with that. So they've been working. If you like, I had a Bank of America account when I was in college many years ago, and nobody really walked into the bank. We took a picture and we sent it. So what we need to do is like look at banks that have done it for years, and we can just copy their controls, the controls that they have in place to protect against the risk. So there are a lot of risks, and we would want to, have those same controls in place and to make sure that our banks are not infiltrated. Because again, we have to keep this, 21st century. We gotta keep up with all the technological changes. And so definitely you want to read up on that so you know the risks and what controls can be in place to protect you against those risks. So thank you for that. And then back to Joshua. So Joshua, again, last week we spoke on there are 22 crimes under money laundering. One is theft. One is stealing by reason of employment. So I'm not certain if the article, were they employees? Because I saw another article where Meat Max had 3 employees that stole over 20 some thousand dollars as well. Did anybody else see that?
No, I didn't
Yes,
see that
ma'am.
one.
Yes, I
Yeah.
saw
Yes,
that.
I saw
Yeah, I
that.
It
heard
was
about
four
it.
females.
Okay. So that's an article y'all can discuss. So Joshua, your persons you say you're not sure if they were employees?
They well, like I said, then each of them worked at different locations. I know, like the gentleman, he works Atlantis, but they weren't the person in question. He does not work the victim. I
Okay.
know he doesn't work there, so I think it was maybe at a different location, and
Okay.
then they just got caught basically.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so like I said, theft, stealing by reason of employment is now falls under money laundering. So what that means is normally if you get charged with stealing by reason of employment or theft, you normally get 3 or 4 years, right? So you will get that first charge. The money laundering charge is supposed to carry 15 years, right? And so when these court cases come up, we want to look. I know a lot of times the case says voluntary bill of indictment, but we want to look at the charges. Are they going to get charged with just theft? Are they going to get charged with theft and money laundering? Did they take that 23,000 and place that into a financial institution? Did they try to layer it? Did they then integrate it back into the community? And so once they would have done that, they should get that same charge of money laundering, which could have a sentence up to 15 years. All right. And that is what the international regulators is looking for. Right. Remember, they came in 2018 and they told us Bahamians, just law-abiding citizens, not many persons have been charged with money laundering. And so, of course, we repealed and replaced all of our money laundering laws or anti-money laundering laws in 2018, and that criminalized money laundering. And so we should definitely follow those cases to see if they get that hefty money laundering charge. Okay? All right. Anybody else? No?
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Um, I really don't work for an institution. I'm really retired, hotelier, but I involved in various businesses through family and so forth and so on. This idea now of I got a cousin of mine that's in Eleuthera that has a brother that's here that was living with me for a while and it's made some money. I ain't sure where he made this money from or what he do, but all of a sudden he just comes with some money. And he is sending it through Island Luck to his brother in Eleuthera. So I'm wondering how do we monitor? Because I mean, I suspect that he put some kind of deal and make this money and send it to his brother to clean it off, so you don't have no trail. How you combat that from a money laundering perspective?
Okay. All right, Kevin. So I just wanted to say this is being recorded, right? So we don't want to call any names, right?
I ain't got no
But
names. That's
yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah.
said.
I just saying, yeah. So very, very good question. So as persons that work in the financial services sector, our first duty is to know our clients. We ought to know our clients and know our clients' clients, right? And so when we get to chapter 4 or 5, we will talk about what are the know your client documents, which is like identifying them through their passport, their source of income, their address, right? And so your duty would be to find out where the source of income is. Now, Island Luck has been in so much trouble from these money transfers. Remember, you're supposed to deposit and gamble. You're not allowed to deposit to Island Luck and withdraw at another location. Now, because there's a banking crisis in the family islands, it's allowed, however, that is 100% against the law. 100%. And of course, the banks are pushing for the enforcement of that law because that would mean that Island Luck would now be competing with the banks in terms of transfers.
I don't
Now,
blame him because every
yeah,
week he's sending
of
a
course,
thousand dollars, a
of
thousand dollars.
course. Right,
So
right.
who's watching the paper trail?
Right. And so Island Lux compliance officers should be watching that. But like I said, because we have to know our community and our culture, culturally, throughout the family islands, all of the banks closed down. There's no other way. The fees are very high. And so that is absolutely not allowed. And Island Luck could be fined or shut down for allowing those withdrawals.
Miss
Many
Fuller,
people
I get.
do it. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, even with that system, it could be very, very hard to combat it because they're already allowing it, and just because any Joe Blow could just come up and say, "Hey, put this $1,000 or put this $500 on this account," and then just walk off. So a ring could have 50, 60, 70 people, or they could just walk up at you and make a quick $100. Put this on account for me, and like how is the KYC and that situation even going to help when literally it isn't like really enforced. Anyone could
But
come with a $500 or $1,000. They don't have a
but
system where if you're putting on $1,000, you need to fill out this KYC form. Like they don't
but
have something like that in place.
but Kelly, they are supposed to, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. See, it's no use putting all these rules in place if you can't enforce them. There has to be the gatekeepers, and we are the gatekeepers. And this is why we read the newspaper every day, and this is why we are aware, so that we can look out for these types of things. However, like I said, culturally, the family islands are unbanked. Island Lock is unbanked. So basically, the government has to find a solution for all of the persons who are unbanked. And their solution is to just close one eye and pretend like we don't know this happening until they find a fix. That's basically what's happening. All right. Now, what you will see is you will see international pressure. So we had a review of the 40 recommendations in 2017. They found that we were deficient in 22 of those recommendations. We updated. We are the third country in the world to have 40 out of 40 recommendations in place. And again, remember, I talked about regulations being expensive. Regulation really means that once it's in place, Uncle Sam will get his tax, dollar. Really, that's what it is. And so a lot of people are against it. And if there's no solution, if I don't send this money to Island, like how else the person on the family island can get it? So it lies with the government to find a solution for the unbanked. But like I said, we're having this review in 2026 of July, where the FATF is going to come back in. So you may see some enforcement closer to the time where they're saying, listen, the international regulators are coming in. You can't turn a blind eye right now until they leave. You see? So it's allowed passively, but once we're being watched and we get that international pressure, which means we could be blacklisted, then you will see it being enforced. All right, so we are the future leaders, and our government needs help. This is why I say when the MPs come to your door, you gotta say my Grammy live or Mr. Christie in Long Island or Eleuthera, he need this money. It's legit. How is he to get it? There's no bank. I lived in Eleuthera for a short period. I had to drive 2 hours to get to a bank, or I had to catch a boat and pay like $15 and then rent a go-kart for $20. So before I even reach to the bank, that's done $30. All right. And there are a lot of grassroots people on the island, so that's not feasible. All right. So solutions, and that's what the government needs help with, finding solutions. Camille?
Good night again. Just a question based on what you're saying. So you're saying that it is technically illegal, right? You're also
No,
saying
it's illegal. It's illegal.
yes, but
Mhm.
with the air quotes. I was
Yeah.
doing you can't see my air quotes, but I'm doing the air quotes. And you're also saying that there is no other solution. And then you're also saying that when we are being monitored or watched come, I think you said July. So in that case, do you feel like there would be something put in place by then, again, for the persons on the island? Because if there are no banks and now we can't do it through Island Lock because we're being monitored, if there is a crisis or something and persons on the island need funds, do you think by then there would be another means of them receiving funds? I guess maybe the post office, or would there be something
Well,
else?
Camille, this has been a problem for a very long time, right? And so right now, the central bank has put up something in place called agency banking. So that means like cash and go, BAF Financial, in fact, Sun Cash put these kiosks in the various convenience stores because, of course, the convenience stores always have cash. And so the idea is at the end of the day, the convenience store needs to deposit their money. They don't have a bank to deposit it to, so they put it into the kiosk, and then you come and use the kiosk as like a withdrawal system. And so they put these ATMs in. But the other day, whilst I was in Eleuthera, I withdrew $300 and they charged me $24. So I I was on the floor. I was like $24 for 300. So again, it is a solution, but it's really not affordable. for, the communities throughout the Family Island. So it's more than they had for a very long time. But it's not affordable. There are also some grocery stores, like I go to this particular grocery store and they run my card and they give me cash. And I do that rather than driving 2 hours or catching a boat back and forth and renting a Gulf card just to go to the ATM. So they are the alternatives right now. So hopefully, the solution also is the sand dollar. All of you should know what the sand dollar is. If you don't know, find out. It's our digital currency. It's not cryptocurrency. It's our digital currency, right? And so, we allow the Chinese to come in and create the currency. I'm kind of wary about that. However, in China, it's completely cashless. All right. And so one of the issues in our country is that we are too cash intensive. All the cash and goes, the island lux, the money services businesses, they make us high risk. And so no country wants to be high risk, of course. And so they created this digital asset. So it's with hopes, and it's just a rumor in the financial world that we will be completely cashless by 2030, which is in 4 years. So that's the next option. But the sand dollar is up and running right now. And so basically you just refill your sand dollar. And that's the workaround that they're pushing. But again, so many fees are attached to that till you'll probably spend $50 just to get 300. And so they have to make these things more affordable. But they are the workarounds until, Island Al-Qaeda gets like a banking license or something, which I believe they need to get because, the Canadian banks have been threatening us for a very long time that they're going to exit. Let them exit. Let them go. Give Flowers and Sabasa a banking license and let us go on. That's my 5 cents. That's my 5 cents. Deshaun?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask the same question. Shouldn't Island Lactose have a banking license? They're dealing with cash every day. People come in and then how do they pay out? When you pay, winners for the winners, that's a
They no,
transaction.
they again, this government, I don't know. I don't know how it's set up. First of all, there should be a national lottery like every other country. And rather than putting all these taxes on the poor people and wiping out the middle class, we should have get a national lottery.
I agree.
And that would have counted, but we didn't do that. We decided that, only 8 people in the Bahamas need to be rich, right? And so we give those licenses. They created this license. It's not a banking license. That license costs $1 million. A banking license costs like 70,000 a year. So yeah, that's what we did. So again, young future leaders, this whole country in your hands. We depending on y'all to make a difference. The millennials who say they savvy and they could do better. We really, really, we need your help internationally and locally. All right. And I always tell persons that don't feel like you are not qualified, because we have two of the most effective MPs that we have right now are beauty queens. All right. And so you could do it. You could do it, but our country really
Miss Bullet,
needs your
Miss
help.
Bullet, you're talking like you're old. You're a young guy yourself.
I older than the rest of them in here. I older than them. Yeah. I older than these future leaders in here. So yeah, so no, really think about it. A lot of people feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I whatever. Two of the most effective, the beauty queens prior to becoming MPs. So yeah, so they need help. They really need help. And so I always tell the persons in class, you're on the right track. Your next step is to go on this journey through ICA or whatever career path that you have. But the country really, really needs some help. Really need. We have the same people been in for 40 years and we have the same 40-year-old problems. All right. So I always beckon on the young leaders to please come in and help us out. Help make a difference. All right. And that's why I want y'all reading every day to be aware. be aware, please, of what the issues in the country and these things that block us up for 40 years. For 40 years, we had these same problems, all right? So please, millennials, make a difference. All right. Anybody else? No? Okay, so next week, I expect all of y'all to have a newspaper article, all right? And remember, look out for those court cases that fall under those 22 crimes. All right, because those persons will be charged with money laundering. All right, or any fiscal news or financial news, like Aubrey said, her CEO, very smart guy. He always puts a lot of information out there. All of you are supposed to be a part of the FinTech link now at the Securities Commission. He is talking about digital assets and putting a training out there. All of you should be aware. All right. Okay, so let's just make sure, because you're very, very quiet, and this is a discussion-based class, so we need everybody's 5 cents from last week. We want to make sure that you got the right information and you're leaving with the correct understanding, okay? Because remember, we teach comprehension. We want to make sure that we speak the same language. All right, so we'll start with Aubrey. Christy, were you here last week?
Came in the I think in the midst of it, just to tell you, this is the very first computer that I've ever owned. Okay, and all my life I had a secretary or administrative assistant because I was general manager of a hotel and had people just to do this kind of stuff. I didn't start sending emails until a couple of months ago for my whole life. Okay, because I've been a boss all my life. So this is a whole new experience for me. So I came in late to the meeting, but I came with my niece early who got me all set up now. So
Okay.
I plan to spend all week just catching up with you on all the other stuff. So I have no doubt that I will be able to do that. Because I'm not part of any institution. I've never worked in the financial sector. I have an interest in, redefining myself in regards to this class, from the gaming aspect of it.
Okay.
So I wanted to get this under my belt and I'll be able to put this on my resume, and then see what happens after that.
Okay. All right. Well, definitely the casinos are financial institutions, right? And so you're definitely in the right place from the gaming aspect. So you should, everything that we require, the banks and the insurance companies, we require
Right.
gaming as well. All right. So we'll
Okay.
get your 5 cents from you next week then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
I'll give you 10 cents in
All
fact.
right, excellent. I like that. Excellent. All right. So Aubrey, give us your takeaway. What after the chapter 1 and chapter 2, what stood out to you the most?
I think what stood out to me the most is working in banking. I got a greater appreciation for why we ask the questions we ask and why we do what we do. Like every now and again, when you send up an application to onboard a client, compliance will come back, hey, can you clarify on this? And in the moment, like you waiting on the approval, so you annoyed the approval taking long. But now I have a greater appreciation of like when they asking is because they want to make sure that money laundering isn't happening. And they're also technically our first line of defense before we even onboard the client. So
Right, the second line. Y'all is the first line.
yeah,
That's the second line, right?
agreed.
Right.
So I think I gained a greater appreciation and of why we ask what we ask, even for existing customers when they come in and suddenly they're in the bank more and we have them doing the source of funds, or even just in a case where, they're not over the threshold of the 10K cash, but we think something's off, so we still ask for a source of funds. It just gave me a greater appreciation.
Okay, good. So you gonna stop giving compliance a hard time.
No, I
And
don't
you
give
gonna
them a
make
hard
sure.
time, but let's answer their questions.
Okay,
I just
good. So you're
appreciate
gonna
it
make
more.
sure Miss Polity ain't getting this loan to sanitizers.
Exactly.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you for that.
No
All
Yeah,
right.
problem.
question, Ms. Bullitt, not to interrupt, just question. The You're talking about compliance, and I always get the feeling when I go in the bank that I'm being interviewed by the police or something like that sometimes because ain't no compliance there to me. Now they ain't complying with nothing. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Uh,
yeah,
so I'm wondering from the customer services standpoint and from the human aspect, from human to human, because all the banks seem to be more automatically driven. And want to discourage any human interaction, because just from a service personal experience, I operate your personal card that has your bank account. And then I do a debit card for where I travel and so forth and so on that I can control, where I just load that card up and whatever's on there, we spend, and that's the end of that. Um, uh, and so I fool on credit cards, much like that. But I went into the bank and somebody had been accessed my personal account on my personal card. I was charging up some kind of child's game going over a few months that now I have a fraud charge in there that they investigated and so forth and so on. And all of that, like I left me scared of this digital thing that y'all young folks are always talking about and all that kind of stuff like that. I from the old school bank books book where you write your money
right.
down and you know where it is. I'm a school. I mean, so I left my bank of the last 35 years very discouraged.
Yeah.
Because my wife keeps asking, why don't we do online banking? And I ain't doing that foolishness because I don't trust it.
No, and again, Christy, that's what we're talking about. So there's risk in all areas, right? And so what we want to do is find out the controls that we could put in place to protect our institutions against these risks, right? So this is the 21st century. We either catch up or we get left behind, right? And of course, we don't want to get left behind, but we also want to be smart about it. So you must learn the controls to protect your card against fraud. One of the controls is that you have a PIN, right? And that you do not share your PIN with anybody, right? Another control is that they once you sign into like online banking, they give you a code, that a one-time code that you have to put in. So there are certain controls out there to protect you, right? So the risk is greater, but the convenience is also greater. All right. And it's the way, like I said, the way the world is moving. So you gotta keep up or you get left behind. And we certainly don't want to get left behind. But you must always know that even with going into the bank, the thing about risk is you can never eliminate it. Okay? You can only mitigate it. You mitigate by learning the ways to protect myself. All right? And because credit card fraud is so prevalent, Visa and MasterCard say, listen, don't give, once this person is a Visa or MasterCard holder, which 99.9% of the cards are, credit them 100%. All right. So once they find out it was indeed a fraud and not your grandchild, get a hold of your card and put the little key, you know. Once they find that out, you will be credited 100%. It's small inconvenience, but the convenience for the overall technology and not lining up and standing in the bank for 30 minutes and losing that passbook, I think the convenience outweighs the um inconvenience.
Spoken like a true banker.
Yeah. It eliminates the true inconvenience. All right. So yeah, we gotta catch up. We gotta keep abreast. And it's the way, it's nowhere in the world. Like I said, you could go and not be asked these questions in regards to KYC. And even though you don't get harassed right up front, we call it harassment. Once you make that deposit through the ATM or through your online banking, there are compliance professionals in the background receiving reports. Kevin Christie made this deposit today. Make sure it's within his profile. If it's not within his profile, call him back and ask him to declare the source of funds. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the background that you wouldn't see when you use the automated machines. We'll get used to it. Eventually, just like we used to have our big block cell phones. Now we have these little ones, and now we have these smartphones, and we don't even need computers anymore, right? So it's evolving. Change always evolves. We just got to keep up. It's inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it, right? Keep up, keep up. All right, very good. Cindy Roma, what's your 5 cents?
Sorry, I was in your last class. I'm just trying to like get the hang of everything.
Okay,
And
next week for you then, Cindy.
yes, mom.
All right, thanks. Letitia Carey.
Good night, everyone.
Like,
Good night.
Okay, so basically last week we only touched on the different stages of money laundering, which I'm quite familiar with because my background is compliance.
Okay.
Yeah, my background is compliance, but I'm appreciative of it. A lot of persons. Well, now I've been in the legal field for about a good couple of years, and I noticed that attorneys don't have an appreciation for compliance. They think, oh, you need this. You don't need all of that. Even real estate agents, they seem to be a bit, they don't like it. A lot of persons don't like it, but it's necessary. I remember in one interview, I spoke. The attorney told me up front, he was like, well, quite frankly, I don't really care for compliance. And I say, so you're telling me you don't care that your money may be coming in through child trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. You tell me you don't care that someone who's involved in that is sending funds through your firm. And then he was pretty quiet after that.
Of course.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a bit rough, but it's necessary. Times have changed so much, so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. And the awareness is key, and it's good that you shared that with him to bring the awareness. I had another instance of um suspicious activity. And again, like you said, child smuggling, human smuggling, and what have you. And this happened with a person who attended class. They worked in the casino, and they said, "But Miss Bullard, at 3 a.m. There are some girls that come in with the big poker players, but they're non-coherent. Like we would walk up to them and ask them if they want drinks, and they're like completely spaced out." And I said, "So what have you done?" He was like, "Nothing. These poker players, they play for like $10 million. We don't do anything." And I said, "And this is exactly why human smuggling and kidnapping and everything is so prevalent because people are just afraid." And he was like, "So what should I do?" I said, "Well, compliance is certainly not in the casino at 3 a.m. So you would need to slip them a note or ask them to watch the videos or do something to alert them.
Yeah.
Listen, come and check these young girls out. Find out if they're not being human trafficked. Because again, that's one of the crimes under money laundering.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it is.
by the end of his journey, he had compliance in and they had started an investigation. So there's not only suspicious transactions, but also suspicious activity.
Please.
Yes. All right, good. Very good, Letitia. Thank you for that. Jacobia?
Yes, one of the big takeaways for me was the difference, because I was getting confused with the difference between layering and integration. But um, I understand that layering is just um concealing where the funds are coming from, and then integration is just taking it out from the financial institution after you already placed it in.
Yeah, and putting it back in the community, that means it's legitimate money. So very good. So the purpose of layering is we want to diminish the audit trail. We don't want them to be able to know that this from a drug deal or I send all this money to, 10 different people, right? We hoping that they don't have reports in the background that'll show I deposited money over my profile amount. All right. So, okay, very good. Very good. Camille?
Last week was a good, I guess I would say refresher for me. I did AML back in college where I work. It's mandatory every year. We do this training, and then my office is right next door to the compliance officer's office. And he isn't short on words, so he always expresses why he asks and why he looks for certain things. He explains things and break things down, letting us know the importance of, like you said, know your customer and know your customers' customers. He always reminds us of the regulations he has to follow, the central bank procedures he has to follow. So we kind of get it. I would say drilled in our heads basically on a daily or every other day basis, the importance of it. But that's kind of what piqued my interest. So getting a deeper dive is really interesting for me.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Happy that you're here with us. All right, Lo, Iceland Lo.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Yeah, so I also gain a better appreciation for understanding why, because I work at Bank of the Bahamas, we have so much signatories that have to actually approve account openings. We also do a background check as well, and I understand now why, to whereas, for instance, we'd send money or a customer can come in, send money to Africa. We'd send that because the source of funds came from us. However, to receive cash from Africa, it takes up to 90 days in order for us to actually credit that onto your account. And that's because they're actually trying to make sure the source of funds is legitimate. So now I have a better understanding as to why, it takes so long.
long,
And,
right.
the customers come back, oh, but my cousin sent this from this time. And Now I understand why. Because it was we could have been some sort of embezzlement, drugs or, some
All
sort
sorts of
of
stuff.
a
Yeah,
way that they could have
scams.
received that
Many, many
income.
scams.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
takes literally up to 90 days to receive credits from further international places for us. Now I understand why. So I have a better appreciation for it.
Okay, good, very good. All right, Deshaun.
Um, so far the class it seems very interesting and very informative. What piqued my interest last class was interest financing, and I guess mainly the pointing out that how charitable donations, because we have a lot of charities and it like especially in the Bahamas, like who monitors it? Like
Right.
how are charities and nonprofits regulated? I know they at one point they had to be registered with the registry. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Registrar General monitors them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was very interesting from last class.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and you got to keep your eye open because for years, you always give to the Ramfley Home or the Children's Emergency Hostel, and could you imagine that is being used for ISIS? Or let's look at Bishop Lawrence Roll. If somebody gave our good bishop $50,000 and say, Bishop, 50 for me and 50 for you, would Bishop really know, but money laundering? Would he know that? Or he could say, the Lord send this money.
The Lord send the
Oh,
money.
there you go.
Dancing
There
all
you
over
go.
Facebook.
Yeah, so at writing dancing, many times spend the money, you can say money go on, right? All right, so we got to protect those persons who are not so financially savvy as well. And so the registrar too requires them to, do some training, do some record keeping if you get over a certain amount. And there are certain steps that they are monitoring to make sure that the charities are not exposed to money laundering. All right, so very good.
Okay.
Very good. Janelle Brown.
Hi.
Hi.
Um, so for me, I guess even while doing this assignment, well, last week's assignment, I start to understand why certain policies are in place as a customer, as annoying as it is.
Yep.
Like having to call the bank and let them know why you're traveling, or having to call them and ask them to open up your account from a certain limit so you could be able to pay some medical bill or whatever.
Right.
I understand why the security measures are there. And I guess like they say, like everyone else said, you have a greater appreciation for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very
Um, You ain't too mad. You're mad. It's annoying, but
Okay. Good. You stop cussing out the bank people, right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good, good, good. All
yeah.
right. Knowledge is power. Very good. Anthony,
Good night, everyone.
good night.
Last class was very informative. I would say that I've learned a lot coming from an entirely different industry. One of the things that I've learned mostly is how to be a better criminal. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Or
Wrong
am I?
class,
Or am I?
Anthony.
Or am I? Like, you know? No, seriously. But who does this laughing? You said this all
Cindy.
fun and jokes until I come for your money. I just joking, Cindy. That's a joke. I ain't gonna do it. But I've learned a lot. And with me, I am a person where if I get into something and it's intriguing, I go down a rabbit hole. And because I'm already an avid reader, I went ahead and I bought some books.
Okay.
Uh,
Excellent.
yeah. The one that I like the most so far is Intentional Integrity: How Smart Companies Can Lead an Ethical Revolution. It's by Robert Chestnut. That's a really good read.
Okay. Thank you
Uh,
for sharing.
yeah, I'll probably drop the link in the group, but it's very informative and yeah, I'm really interested. I went to chapter I think 4 inside the book. I'm really interested in seeing how we break down terrorism financing and getting into that discussion, the inner workings of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Michael?
Good night. Um, I wouldn't say anything stood out most for me because this is something we have to do within the company every year. So a lot of this is familiar to me. With RBC, they tend to do this a lot. Like I say, every year you have anti-money laundering training, and they go into all of this in depth. They give examples, they give you questions, a test. You have to pass it in order to, and that's required. So you can't just leave it undone. So a lot of this is just bringing back memories.
Okay. All right, good. All right. So you don't giving compliance a hard time, and you know
Oh,
the FIU say any employee that is not trained by January 31st of the prior year will be charged 10,000 a day per employee.
oh boy.
Yeah, and you know some employees just give compliance a hard time, right? $10,000 per day if all your employees don't have that anti-money laundering training every year.
So they send reminders to the managing staff to let them know, hey, this due next month. So
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
everybody attached to that email.
right, because Royal Banking about to pay 10,000 for nobody to the government. Nobody. All right, very good. Anthony, go ahead with your question.
My question was to Michael, well, to anyone that's in that industry, because again, I'm coming from somewhere else. He said that this is something that you guys have to do every year. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out, is that just at this level, or is that even if you have an ICA?
Even if you have an ICA, every year you have to do this introductory training. It's mandatory. And if your organization has 100 employees, every year the FIU wants confirmation that all 100 employees have taken some sort of AML training, or you will be charged $10,000 per day per employee.
I, I get you, but my question, I guess, I don't know how it works, but wouldn't having an ICA and having to do the intro be sort of
No,
redundant or
no,
no? Okay.
no. No, you still have to have the training because there are typologies, right? Different
Right.
ways that people find to defraud the system. And so essentially they want you to keep abreast of, all these different scams that have been
Oh,
happening.
so you're continuously updating. It's not necessarily the same exact thing.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. Okay, Miss G. Pratt, could you put your full first and last name for the register, please? And then you could give us your 5 cents.
Okay, ma'am, will do. Good evening, everyone. As it relates to last week, I'm like the speaker that just was on. I am new to most of this information. And so I had the basic understanding of money laundering, but I knew nothing about the stages. And so this information is useful for me and it helps me to understand some things in the position I sit, as well as on a personal level, because now I understand the importance of the KYC. And so I look forward to the information that is going to be shared because I'm sure I'm going to need it in my position. Thank
Yes,
you.
definitely, definitely. All right, Joshua. Is Joshua there? Or Joshua be talking too long, you
No,
don't fall asleep, Joshua. You
no,
there?
sorry.
Okay.
I feel like I'm too old. I didn't know how to work the phone. Um, but in regards to just like everybody, well, a few of the team members who stated the complexity of the different stages, I wasn't aware of it. So I read up on that, not knowing that, you have to go through all the stages to make sure your money is clean if you were to money to do any money laundering. It also made me aware when I'm at work in regards to when IT sends those cybersecurity and all those other different things in regards to um, anti-crime and money laundering to actually read it rather than just having to play in the background and then answering the questions after. So yeah, I'll be more aggressive or more abreast when it comes to those type of things.
And make
So
time for it, right? Because right now it's like,
yes,
nobody have time for this. We busy, right?
correct. Yeah,
All right.
correct.
I know. Very good. Very good. All right, Kelly.
Uh, Good night again, everyone. Um, I was pretty familiar with the first stage because when I was younger, I worked at Cash and Go, and they were very, 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 very heavy on us taking the anti-money laundering introductory and making sure that we know our customers because it's a very, very cash heavy exchange of hand business where persons were sending funds across the world. So I was very, very familiar with the layering of the money, what they call muddying the money. So it's not, you really don't know where it's coming from. But I am interested in the other parts of it. But definitely the introductory part of layering, I was very, very familiar with that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. All right, guys. Good, good. Remember, this is a discussion-based class, so I need to make sure hear from you each week and make sure that we all stay on the same page. All right. So we're gonna cover chapter 3 and 4. And chapter 3 speaks on, and then probably we'll get a volunteer for case, I think, 1 at the back, just for some, again, awareness training. So chapter 3 speaks on international standards. So basically, last week, we wanted to know exactly like where all these laws come from, Miss Bullard, like who created them, how are they made up? And so they come from international regulators, all right? And so international regulators are the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. They came up with the 40 recommendation. The Wolfsburg Group, they man the corresponding bank systems of the world, how we transfer money all around the world. And then um who else is this? The Basel Committee. The Basel Committee, they write a lot of principles that become international and world standards. And so what these international regulators hope is that each country will then put these recommendations into law. Once those recommendations are in law, then each regulator takes the portion of law that it's applicable to them. And remember, we looked at the central bank guideline. They create a guideline for you to follow, and then your institution will copy that guideline and have an anti-money laundering directive. All right. So international regulators, local law, Bahamian law, local regulator guidelines, and then our own company having an AML directive. And so last week I said, if you don't have a copy of your AML directive on your person, please go and get it. And please put it as one of your goals. I need to go through this and know what our directive says, what our principles are, and what really governs us. Because again, the hackers and scammers are smarter than us, right? When they infiltrate, our only protection is that we can speak knowledgeably to this is our job description. This is actually what we do. We are aware it's up to date, it's current, and this is what our policy says. If you cannot speak knowledgeably to prove to regulators, inspectors, the police, that you know the controls in place to protect your institution, you could get charged with negligence. Now, I also ask you all to take some time to watch Netflix, watch Dirty Money. If any of you had the time to watch it, there's also one from Wells Fargo where 4,500 persons got let go. All right, and only 50 people stole. The other 4,450 people were just negligent. All right. And so they had a very big ring going on for years. All right. So you don't want to get caught in that ring. The only way for you to not get caught in it is for you to say, I was not negligent. You only can prove that if you know what the policy says and if you actually do what your guideline says. And a lot of times we don't even know. We don't know what policy we following. Our job description ain't update for years. That ain't what we really is do. We don't know the risks involved, right? That's the culture. All right. So what we want to be sure them other 50 people going to jail and we could explain ourselves. All right. So let's just look at what chapter 3 says. It says the learning objective is to understand the international players that work together to combat money laundering and terrorist financing and examine some of the initiatives of these international players. So entering the field of AML, it is required that compliance professionals be aware of international developments. So again, you need to read the news because there are many developments, many changes. Then you need to read the news to follow where is your country? Is your country in line with these international developments? Is it feasible? Remember, the Bahamas took a staggered approach. Financial services was 20% of our GDP. When we put these laws and stuff in place, nobody gave us any money. We lost 17% of GDP, right, of our second industry. And so that would give us an understanding as why we may be lagging behind and then why we were blacklisted. All right. Does it make sense? All right. So compliance professionals who are exposed to different jurisdictions of AML regimes will have knowledge to influence and apply enhanced due diligence measures and controls. And again, remember, this did not only happen for the Bahamas, it happened for the world. Remember, I told you all about my colleague in Switzerland. Before they put those AML laws in place in Switzerland, those 40 recommendations, they had 250 bank and trust companies. After they put the regulations in place, 200 closed out. They were left with 50. All right, so that is the effect of putting laws into place. All right, so it says the Financial Action Task Force is not a permanent group. They were established in 1989. It's an intergovernmental body whose purpose is to establish international standards and develop and promote policies. And again, they came out and did a review in 2017. They found out that we were deficient in 22 of the 40 recommendations. And let me just, so for a visual, you can see this report. Okay, that's the update report. Where is it? So they came in, they wrote this very large 157-page report in July of 2017. Since July of 2017, we have corrected those 22 recommendations that was deficient. So we are 40 out of 40 in our Bahamian laws. And so you could just take some time and Google this, look at the key findings and see where we were deficient. Now, what they're doing, they came back in 2021, they said we still needed some more work. And then in 2022, they gave us hooray, yeah, you're the third country in the world that put all of these recommendations in place. So now they're coming back in 2026 to say, okay, so they finally got all the recommendations in place. Are they being enforced? Right? And so that recommendation where we had to make sure all the number houses were legalized. We did that in 2015, right? And now they want to make sure that they're running efficiently. We're bringing on a cannabis now network, and so they want to make sure that we have the proper structure, the proper controls in place to protect against money laundering through cannabis, right? And so they're going to check all of that. And so, like I say, right now, today, January, you may be able to go to Island Luck and get your $1,000. I can tell you in May or June, that ain't gonna happen because these people gonna be here in July. You know what I mean? And so we don't know how far back they're gonna check records. So again, they are going to be looking at, okay, so this was a problem before. What controls did the Bahamas put in place? What did the Bahamas do to satisfy this issue in the Family Islands? Is it effective? Is it being enforced? All right. So that's from the FATF. Um, the book goes on to say they promote policies both nationally and internationally to combat money laundering and financing of terrorism. So let's look at, remember I said by the end of each class, you want to look at the homework and you want to make sure that you could answer the question. So let's look at the homework question relating to this. So let's look at this, make sure we don't leave without being able to answer the question. What does it say? Question 3, which FATF style regional body is the Bahamas a member of? And the FAT undertakes a range of tasks. Explain 3 of those tasks, okay? So let's make sure that before we leave, we can answer that if we have not done our homework. And even if we have done it, just know that these are all past exam questions, so you want to make sure you can answer all of them. All right, so the FATF Secretariat is housed in offices of the Organization for Economic Development, the OECD, in Paris. So the FATF meets several times per year. It brings together legal, financial, and law enforcement experts from over 30 countries. And one of the complaints that both our governments, the FNM and PLP, had was, listen, we are compliant. We are 40 out of 40. We have other countries that are not compliant. They are not blacklisted, and they are not high risk. Is it an even playing field? It doesn't matter what we do. Will this group of 30 countries always come down on us? And so for many years, we were arguing back and forth, like, is this a fair group of people? Like, what's happening? And we've been in talks and trying to find solution, and we found out that we simply didn't have a seat at the table. At one point they blacklisted us in error, and I think Peter Turnquest was the Minister of Finance at that time, and he lashed out at the OECD and he said, listen, I met all your deadlines and still we are blacklisted. What really is happening? And when you look at these 30 countries, the Bahamas never had representation. All right. And so I think Carl Bethel had applied to be the president at one point of the CFATF, which is the Caribbean region of the FATF. So really, when you all get into power, all those ambassadors and whatever you call those dignitaries that all around the world, you'll find out from Miss Bullet what they do, please, and send them out to these meetings and make sure that we have representation so we could not only not get blacklisted and suffer reputational risk, but we could have a seat at the table and protect our country. All right. And that's why I tell you all, I need some of you all to go out there and into the government and into these diplomatic spaces so we could have not only local but international representation. So the mandate is reviewed every 5 years. And this old version of the book that says the latest being for 8 years until 2020. So the FAT assesses the implementation and effectiveness of systems designed to combat money laundering, and terrorist financing. So here's the answer to this homework question. The FATF performs the following tasks. They set international AML CTF standards. They then monitor compliance with these standards. And again, that's what we see happening in July. They're coming in to monitor, is the Bahamas in compliance with these 40 recommendations that they put into law? All right, so they promote worldwide application of the FATF standards through FATF regional style bodies. They encourage compliance of non-FATF members with the FATF standards. And again, our sister country, some time ago, Turks and Caicos was actually a part of the Bahamas. They are a non-FATF member. They don't even have a central bank. They're just trying to get it established. All right, and then they study the methods and trends of money laundering and terrorist financing. All right, so that's how we answer that homework question. They are the task. All right, so it goes on a bit repetitive. It talks about the 40 recommendations. It talks about after September 11 attacks, they expanded to add 9 special recommendations. These recommendations have been repealed, replaced, updated. Remember, I said it's very important when you read a body of work, the very first thing you do is find out, is this indeed the most current copy? Is this the most updated copy? Because a lot of time persons write their essays based on outdated law. You don't get any points, all right? So it goes on to talk about the changes that were made. They made it more suitable, a suitable application for the risk-based approach. That is enhanced due diligence and simplified due diligence. So enhanced due diligence is normally carried out for high-risk customers. Simplified due diligence is normally carried out on low and medium customers. And then being able to clearly identify beneficial owners of legal entities. So back in Miss Bullet Day, when I was in the branch, we would get a lot of company accounts, and their shareholders registry or registration would say Bullet and Co. And so that really didn't explain to me who Bullet and Co was. That could have been Bullet and Bin Laden, right? And so when the laws were changed, this made it mandatory that, hey, if we did receive that shareholders registered, it said Bullet and Co., we must have like a nominee agreement or another agreement that say this is Miss Bullet and Deshaun Rogers. Okay? Go ahead, Deshaun, with your question.
No, I just wanted to quickly ask. You said that Turks and Caicos don't have a central bank. How does that work for them?
Shall they have one association, something?
Okay.
Again, it's levels to this, Deshaun. You will see, if you study different parts of the world, you'll see that some people are ruled with an iron fist and some people get a slap on the wrist, right? And so I would just say that Turks and Caicos is still a British colony. And they've had one premier, one family of premiers. So one premier got impeached, they put his brother in place. He served his time, they put his sister in place. She served her time, they put their cousin in place. All right? So if you do some reading up, you will see who protects them and why they're allowed to do some things that we're not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we talked about beneficial owner. We talked about, and then it's more scrutiny for wire transfers. And again, we saw that even though Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX sat in the Bahamas and sent those wires all around the world, he was able to be charged in the United States. And so that is the enhancement, whereas the United States could go basically into any country where you would have wire transferred money, and they will charge you in the United States if they feel, especially if your country is like corrupt, or you may get a slap on the wrist. America likes criminal minds, so they won't give you the slap on the wrist, so they charge you overseas. In fact, if you work in the wiring department, because you could get charged in America, where everybody requires one AML training, the wire transfer laws say you are required to have 2 AML trainings. So if you don't have those 2 AML trainings and you work in the wiring department, the same 10,000 per day per staff for every day that you don't have those 2 trainings. All right. Then they increase because they wanted more cooperation between international authorities with tracing, freezing, confiscation, and repatriation of illegal assets. So again, somebody suggested that financial crime is so high because these countries, when you find this $2 million of marijuana and $3 million or $70 million made from human trafficking, who's going to keep that money? The country, right? So they feel that in some instances that, the countries may be turning a blind eye because they making billions of dollars from this illegal activity. And then with the tracing and freezing and confiscation, there's a group called the Egmont Group. And so most of the financial intelligence units around the world, they share information. And so I had a customer that, if y'all ever dealt with customers out of Latin America, I had a customer's name is De Silva, like 25 De Silvas is be in your portfolio. And so the newspaper again does not say, Jesus De Silva, age 35, date of birth, this went to jail. And so here it is. I was reading the Mexican news and I saw that this Jesus De Silva went to jail. And so, of course, I had a copy of the passport on my file, but I didn't know, again, the newspaper wouldn't report his date of birth. And so what I had to do is write to our financial intelligence unit in the Bahamas, and they sent the information to the financial institution in Mexico to come back and confirm to me that yes, that was my client, Jesus De Silva, same date of birth, that had gone to jail. And so, of course, then we had to put all this money on hold. All right. So then they focus on new threats such as financing of proliferation. And again, we saw after George Bush, presidency, they added PF. So it used to be AML, anti-money laundering, CFT or CTF, countering the financing of terrorism. And then after George Bush, updated his Patriot Act in the US and said that there were weapons of mass destruction, they added proliferation financing to the anti-money laundering laws. So it's AML, CFT, Remember when we looked at the central bank guidelines? We saw that addition. All right? Y'all remember? Y'all there?
Yeah.
Nobody answering?
We
Yes,
here.
Okay, all right. Y'all can't go to sleep.
we're
All
here.
right. All right. Y'all good. All right. So they were the fundamental changes in the update of the 40 recommendations. So now the CFATF, the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. And when we get to intermediate, we'll see that there's a European, there's a Asian, because the world is big, it's 195 countries. And so one group can't man the entire world. So of course, this is the next part of the question, and this is always a very popular question on the final exam. The Bahamas is a part of the Caribbean regional style body of the FATF, right? And we should all know that. All right. And so in your spare time, we can read the rest of that. So now let's talk about the IMF. So the IMF was established in 1945 as a specialized agency of the United Nations within the framework of the Bretton Woods Accord. The IMF was designed to avoid a recurrence of the problems of the Great Depression. Its focus was overseeing international monetary systems, preventing crisis by encouraging sound economic policies, and providing short-term loans to help with the balance of payment problems. And so, of course, we always hear about the International Monetary Fund. Of course, we borrow, 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 borrow. And so we always hear about the World Group and the IMF. So today, the IMF serves to stabilize the international monetary system, and it acts as a monitor of the world currencies. So again, these are considered the international regulators. Very popular question on the final exam who are the international regulators, the IMF, the OECD, the FATF, the Wolfsburg Group, the Basel Committee. All right, make sure we know all of them. And then
Miss
who are
Paulette,
the, yes?
sorry. Is that somewhere in the book stating that, or
No, I just tell you it.
so just write those down, like,
Yeah.
okay.
That again, there will be no surprises. If you listen to what Miss Bullitt say, you will be in a good position at the end of the semester. But if you don't listen, you lose. Everything can be written in the book, but this is where we talk about regulators.
Okay.
All right, in this chapter, and we talk more about the local ones at the end, but I slip it in right here. So these are the international regulators. These are the local regulators. So make sure, remember last week, we looked at the local ones. Central Bank, they regulate the bank and trust companies. The Securities Commission regulates the securities industry, and it's the fintech hub for the Bahamas, meaning manning over all the technology, all of the new technology. The Insurance Commission mans the insurance industry. The Gaming Board mans the casinos and the web shop. And the Compliance Commission, the newest regulator, jewelry stores, law firms, accounting firms, and real estate firms that have a financial services arm. All right, and so we would look at all of these to cover this chapter. All right. So I pull up those websites again. I pulled up all the international ones last week. I mean, sorry, the local ones last week. So you should be good with the local ones because you're supposed to be following them. And some of these international ones I will pull up so you will be aware as well. All right. So back to the World Bank Group provides financing policy advice and technical assistance to governments and focuses on strengthening the private sector in developing countries. So again, this is a popular question on the exam. This is what the IMF did for the Bahamas. So it was back in 2018 that the IMF came in and they again was doing a visit and an inspection. And whilst they were here, they noticed that we did not have a disaster recovery plan in place. And so what they did is they said, Bahamas, you don't have a disaster recovery plan in place. We need you to put something in place, or we are going to give you an audit note. All right. And so if you know how audits work, basically auditors come in, they look at your policies and procedures, they let you know what is deficient, they give you the opportunity to fix some stuff before they leave, because the least amount of complaints or audit notes that are on your audit report, the better. Sometimes if you have a very bad audit report, somebody has to go home, somebody has to get demoted, somebody has to go to school. Right? That's how audit works. So they gave the Bahamas, they said, an opportunity. Listen, we're going to be here for a few weeks. Fix your disaster relief plan before we leave. And so the Bahamas, the PLP was in government just before they came. And with the disaster recovery plan, we used to pay $900,000 a year to this CRIFT insurance, right? And so we had a very bad hurricane, I think Hurricane Matthew. We tried to claim and we were told we didn't have enough rain. You had to have excessive rain to claim. So mind you, we done pay this 900,000 for 20 years. We never claim. Then we had another hurricane. I think it was Hurricane Joaquin or Maria. And we tried to claim again. And they said we didn't have, it was in a category 5. All right. And so I think Alcides was the minister at the time back in 2018. And he said, what is the probability of us having a category 5 with excessive rain? That'll never happen. We ain't paying this $900,000 no more. We can invest this somewhere else. And so they didn't pay it. The IMF comes in and says, put a plan in place right away. And so the FNM just won the government. They wanted a good image with the IMF. And so they immediately paid the $900,000 insurance. We then also had a lot of dormant funds in the country. And I don't know if some of you know what a dormant fund is. That would mean that somebody would have come into the bank, open an account, and never made contact. And so the law says after 7 years, you had to send this money to the central bank. But when I was working the Royal Bank Trust, I used to spend $4 million, $5 million a year to the central bank. So dormant funds collected in the Bahamas was to the sum of $88 million. All right. And so they paid the 900,000 insurance. They put $44 million aside from the dormant fund for disaster recovery. And then they went to get a line of credit with the IDB, do all the paperwork so that it would be in place in the event we had a tragedy. So the IMF left satisfied that we had a disaster recovery plan in place. Tell me what happened in 2019.
Sorry.
Yep. The same category 5 with excessive rain that Hakita said would never happen, right? That's what we had. And so for the first time ever in some 20 years, we were able to collect, I think, $14 million for excessive rain and $10 million for category 5. All right. And had we not had that disaster plan in place just months before, we probably would have, I mean, it affected us very, very badly. Freeport and Abaco. Sorry, Lo, you said something?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Yeah. So it affected us very, we had major effects. However, had we not have that disaster recovery plan in place, we would have been in a worse position, right? $25 million less. All right. And so the IMF was happy that we, was able to help ourselves partially at that point that we had the plan in place. Okay. Very popular question on the exam. And so right after that, after Dorian, then we had a pandemic. Right? So we would add a triple catastrophe had that disaster recovery plan not been in place. All right. So normally, Ms. Bullitt talked about these international regulators not being fair. They blacklisting us. This was a good story when they actually encouraged us and they saved us. All right. So that's the story of the IMF. So to give you a visual, we will pull up the Wolfsburg group. This is how money is transferred around the world. Let me pull this up so you'll know. All right. So throughout every time, if you work in the offshore world, nobody comes in the bank to send a wire. Everything is sent through wire, through transfer. Nobody walks in the bank in the offshore world. Now, in the local banks, they walk in the bank and say they want to send a wire, right? But normally, international customers, they just send an email with the wiring information, or in fact, you could do it through online banking, right? And so these are the 12 banks globally that all the money is transferred through the world, all right? And so imagine if these banks block you out, then in the offshore world, definitely you can't survive, right? And so these 12 banks, they are European banks as well as American banks. And so before, we used to, send some money through our European counterparties because America has like Venezuela blocked and the Bahamas has a big Venezuelan book. And so that used to be a workaround. But now everybody have the 40 recommendations in place and you can't send no money, no way. So you have to answer all these questionnaires. And before 2018, when the laws changed, these questionnaires used to be like 28 questions. Now they are 200 questions, right? And so you have to answer these 200 questions in order for you to be able to have this correspondent banking account. And so what happens is, if you don't fill this out and if you don't comply, you can't send wires, right? And so if you can't send wires, really, like I say, you can't transfer money around the world to pay bills and stuff like that. You're really in a bank, right? So these contracts and these applications, the banks, they have like a whole treasury department manning them every night to make sure that sufficient money is on the accounts so that the wires could go through. And so these questions, like I say, this is like a 200-page document that you have to answer to be able to get to just transfer just the wire money. And if you look at the questions, it asks you, it's the above mandatory training provided. And this is just AML training. Did you train your board and your senior management? Did you train your first line of defense? Did you train your second line of defense? Did you train your third line of defense? And if you say no in any of these categories, then they shut down your wiring account. Could you imagine wires being shut down at the Royal Bank? Like that can happen, right? They lose loads and loads of money. And so when they also want to look at your portfolio and the type of customers that you have. And so they ask you, do you have accounts with people in oil and gas? See, these are considered the very high risk businesses. So do you have any embassies or consulates, extractive industries, gambling customers, marijuana related businesses, non-resident customers, nuclear power? We do have RTAC in Andros, and their accounts are in some of the local banks. So we have to say yes. And when you press this drop down box and say yes, they want to know who's your nuclear power customer, And one of the banks that I worked in, we had an account with, of course, RTAC has physical presence in Andros. But then the Army of Israel contacted us and they wanted to open up an account. And we had to basically say, well, we don't have an appetite for Israel. And they complained and they wanted to talk to our board and they wanted to know why they couldn't open an account with us. Payment service providers, like somebody mentioned, they use the word the cash and go, very cash intensive, very high risk. So essentially, they want to know who are your high risk customers, red light businesses, and adult entertainment. We had a customer that constructed IT platforms for like various businesses, and then he took on a contract with Pornhub. And so we had to reach out to our correspondent bank and say, listen, we have 800 customers. This one customer is now building an IT platform. And our correspondent bank said no, because that's an adult red light business. And no, we will shut down your account for the other 800 customers, or you tell this, or you close that one customer out. All right. And so that's just how it works. So unregulated charities, used car dealers, virtual asset service providers, travel and tour companies. All right, so this is what the international regulator requires, or like I say, you can't send wires. All right, so very complex, very, very detailed. All right, that's the Wolfsburg group. Yeah, and so in your own time, this process timeline was when the IMF was in, back in 2018. So that's pretty old. But in your spare time, you can read the rest of that, and so you can have an idea about who the international regulators are. Okay? Any questions? Because you are very, very quiet. You are scaring me.
Can you repeat, you mentioned the international regulators. Can you repeat them again, please?
Okay, so the FATF, remember, they came out with the 40 recommendations. We looked at their website last week, because we wanted to give you a visual. So it's the FATF. And remember, make sure you get the most updated recommendations. And that's how the 40 recommendations look that we put in Bahamian law. So then the Wolfsburg group, that's who responsible for all the wire transfers around the world. The Wolfsburg group. And then of course the IMF, the World Bank, the OECD, the Basel Committee. They are all the international regulators.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. All right. Any questions about chapter 2? Chapter 3. We could go on to chapter 4.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, good. So remember to know that comparison against who are the local ones, who are the
International.
international. Right. Okay, good. Good. Y'all wake. All right. So then chapter 4 goes on to talk about the AML, the Bahamas legal system. And again, we already know where the laws are established: international regulation, Bahamian law, Bahamian regulators guidelines, and then our own guideline within our financial institution. So the book says the Bahamas National Framework for AML CTF is based on the initiatives of the Financial Action Task Force and the Organization for Economic Cooperation Development, the OECD, those two international regulators. The Bahamas.
May I interrupt and ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Please pardon my ignorance. And I see you mentioned to everybody that they have the AML what guideline or something on the desk in front of them. What the hell is AML? You're talking to a completely ignorant guy when it comes to financial services. So please bear with me. What does AML stand for?
Anti-money laundering.
Say again?
Anti-money laundering.
Okay, and there's some kind of playbook that everybody has to go by for that or something?
Okay, so we would have sent a welcome note. With the welcome note, let me just pull up the welcome note so you can look at it. And when you listen to chapter 1, you would, I guess it'll be a little bit clearer for you.
Okay.
There's three attachments. Where's the other one? No, I don't want to send that one. The other one I sent. 1 second. Okay. You got the welcome note, correct?
Yes, I see all that now.
Okay. All right. So in the welcome note, and when you listen, like I say, when you listen to chapter 1.
Yeah. I'm clear on that. I just have to get accustomed to all of these AML and OECD, all these different things that's in that. You know, it's a lot of
Okay.
use. All right.
Yeah. So in that attachment, there's the central bank guidelines, and it says right here, guidelines for supervised financial institutions. That's what they call the banks, on the prevention of money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism, and proliferation financing. So this would be the guideline from the banks, from the regulator, the central bank, who's the oldest regulator in the Bahamas, and they send this out to the bank.
Okay.
The bank will then copy from this table of contents, and whatever products and services that they offer, they will then put it in a guideline that they give to their staff. Their staff then signs that they received it and they understand it, because when the police comes to question you, because now they changed the law. It used to be only the compliance officer goes to jail. Everybody that works in financial services can now go to jail, right? And so they get this directive and they look to see where you signed. It says, did you understand? And you have a copy, and that's how they prosecute you. They get your job description, where you sign, and that's how they prosecute you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
got
So
it.
you have to make sure you have this policy so that you can speak knowledgeably to that policy so you don't go to jail.
Well, definitely don't want to do that.
Right. But like I say, the hackers and scammers are smarter than us, right? Somebody already hacked your card, right? All
Right.
those bank employees right there. When the police come in to question, how did you all allow this man card to get hacked? Him and many other customers were you negligent, right? And so that's how an investigation will, start. Did the bank
Okay.
employees have the proper controls in place to protect your card from getting hacked? Yes or no? And what are those controls? So when we go into interview Deshaun, and Deshaun was like, she don't know. And we asked Deshaun which policy she following. She don't know, then Deshaun could go to jail.
Gotcha. Thank you.
She was negligent. Yeah. Okay. Good. Somebody else had a question? No? No? Okay. All right. So yeah, so that's the directive. Make sure. I mean, if you work in the hotel, you should have a manual or something similar. All right. So it says the Bahamas is an international player in the financial world. It has a vast volume of business from international clients. This is evident from the number of offshore banks and trust companies operating in the jurisdiction, the number of international business companies, security firms, corporate service providers, foundations, and nonprofits. The Bahamas also ranks top 5 of the countries regarding a ship registry. So, with such a large volume of business being conducted by international clients, this exposes the Bahamas to inherently high cross-border money laundering, terrorist financing risk. The Bahamas National Risk Assessment, Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing Risk Assessment Summary. From an international perspective, such businesses make the Bahamas vulnerable to money laundering, terrorist financing. Additionally, in the domestic market, the credit unions, money transfer businesses also expose the country to high money laundering risk. So again, we'll talk more about the national risk assessment next week when we get to chapters 4 and 5. But I will just pull up the national risk assessment so you all are aware again how it looks, and you could probably read it in your personal time. Risk assessment. Bahamas. Right. Okay. So I could just share a story about what happened with me. So at my institution, we had a trading desk that we paid Switzerland $100,000 a year to do our trades on behalf of the bank. And we wanted to move that trading desk to the Bahamas. However, we didn't have a corresponding bank platform for trading. We had the regular one just for wires. And so we went into New York trying to open up a platform so that we could trade. When we went into New York, we were denied a platform because we were told that the Bahamas National Risk Assessment was not complete. And when we checked online, the last time it was complete was in 215, 216. And so this had to be around 219. And they basically told us, no, we could not open the account until the country's risk assessment was complete because it was perceived internationally that the Bahamas was high risk. At that time, the Bahamas was medium risk. And they said, but Miss Bullet proved to us that the Bahamas is medium risk. And I went, and the last risk assessment was 215. And they said, no, that's too old. They didn't accept that. And so here it is. The risk assessment finally was updated in 2022. So 2019, 2020, 21, 22. $1, $2, $3, $400,000 later, we was able to open that account. All right. So that's the net effect. What happens to a bank if the country didn't do what it was supposed to do? It cost us $400,000. We could not get an account open because the perception of the Bahamas was that it was high risk. All right, so let me see. This is just the summary. Let me see if this is gonna show us enough information. No, that's not what I want. This is not what I want. So this is a central bank website, and this is just the press release. Key findings. Okay. Okay, this is what I want. So in your spare time, because again, the next chapter is going to talk about risk. And then if you go on the intermediate, there are 4 chapters that speak on risk. And risk is normally like cloudy in the beginning, but as you speak on it more, then you tend to understand it. And so this is the report. It tells you all the different officers, that assisted. And so customs, normally we don't consider customs a part of the financial services, but they had a part to play in it. The FIU, the Attorney General Office, the Registrar General Office, along with all the other these are the local, considered the local regulators. All right, so when you pull up this document, you'll see a list of the local regulators. And so I just want to show you something very interesting, that as we went through this drug trafficking and the potential to illegal drug traffic proceeds are rated as as a major domestic money laundering threat to the Bahamas. And so they saying this is the total value of drugs seized from 217 to 222. And so we look at it, and it says cocaine, marijuana, and hydroponic marijuana, I guess, didn't come out till 2021. But what I wanted to say is cocaine, in 2020, we were locked down in the pandemic, and they got $3.9 million worth of cocaine. We were just locked down in 2021, and they got 112. And in 2022, we was locked down to the ground, eh? So who was trafficking all this marijuana whilst the baby public was locked down in 2020, 21, and 22? And cocaine and these hydroponic stuff. Who was out in the streets to traffic this drug for it to increase to this level? Deshaun, you was out? Anthony, you was a teacher, it was you?
The criminals.
Probably.
It was you, Anthony. No, but so again, you want to go through and read these reports because you want to look at what are the threats to the Bahamas. All right, so it tells you about the domestic threats. It then goes on to tell you international money laundering threats, right? Vulnerabilities, right? And then it talks about whether you work in banking and commercial banks to international banks. So you should definitely, like I say, in your spare time, take a read so you are aware of the risk associated with the various sectors that you work in. All right, and so this is right on the central bank website, report on 2022 money laundering risk assessment and their key findings. All right, very, very interesting report. All right, but since this report was completed, we sent this to our international regulator, and they gave us a medium risk rating as a country. And so next week, like I say, when we get into chapter 5 and 6, we will jump heavily on the Basel Committee and how they risk rate countries and what the risk framework. All right, just so you are aware. All right, so where are we? So, okay, so I talked about the national risk assessment we saw, and I gave you the example of how it affected me personally working the bank. $400,000 we lost basically because the country did not do what it was supposed to do. All right, so the laws of the Bahamas, specifically concerning money laundering, terrorist financing, and the requirements that financial institutions know their customers, are found in these following laws. And again, Remember, international, and then international moves into Bahamian law. And again, lawyers make billions of dollars because these laws are not written in layman's terms. All right. And so you need an interpreter. And somebody is always saying, Miss Bullet, King James Version of the Bible, you could compare these laws too. And so let me just try to pull it up. So again, you have a visual of exactly how these laws look. And then we'll have somebody just take a read just to make sure you're up, right? And so again, until you see this official gazette, the law has not been in place. So you will hear constantly a bill to do this, a bill to do that. But that bill can never be approved. Once it's gazetted, then it's made into law. The bill is just the amendments or the changes that they want to make to the law. All right. And so again, this is the most current law. The date is very important. Official Gazette is when you know it's now law. All right. And so again, this is the Proceeds of Crime Act. This is how it looks. This is about 80 some pages. When we sign up to work in financial institutions, casinos, insurance companies, those onboarding forms that we sign and we never read, this is where we say we have a duty not to fail to disclose, and we have a duty not to tip off. And these are our penalties. All right. So again, just so we have a visual of the laws and we understand why the regulators have to write guidelines for us to understand the laws, we will look at our duty, which is we cannot fail to disclose and we cannot tip off. And so after you read it, you will see exactly how there are absurdities in the laws, and it's really, really not in layman's terms. So we'll have a volunteer reader read. We'll go to page 18. So go to table of contents, failure to disclose, it's page 17. Waiting for a volunteer. Who wake? Who wake? Oh, Miss Bullet, I have to pull out some people. Y'all just seeing, y'all don't need no points. Okay. Who feel like they need some points? Nobody? Every A pluses?
I could try read it.
Go ahead, Deshaun. Girl, get some points, girl. Get some points. Okay, so go ahead. Failure to score. And again, these are multiple choice questions, all based on the exam. Most answered wrong questions. Okay, so go ahead, Deshaun. A
Okay.
nominated officer.
A nominated officer commits an offense if the nominated officer knows or suspect or has reasonable grounds for knowing or suspecting that another person is engaging in money laundering or identified risk activity. Any information or other matter on which the knowledge or suspicion of the nominated officer is based or which gives reasonable grounds for such knowledge or suspicion came to him in consequence of a disclosure named under Section 19(1)(a), and he does not make the required disclosure as soon as is practicable after the information or other matter comes to him. For the purpose of this section, a required disclosure is a disclosure of the information of another matter to a focal point officer in the form and manner, if any, prescribed for by the Financial Intelligence Unit. A person does not commit an offense under this section if he has a reasonable excuse for not disclosing the information or other matter.
Okay, so I don't know if you all understand that, but Miss Bullet don't understand. It's very, very confusing, right? I need an interpreter because who's a nominated officer? Who's a focal point officer? And you don't need to disclose until it's practicable. Like when you work in a financial institution, is it ever practicable? Are we not always overworked and overpaid and underpaid? Is it ever? And we don't commit an offense if we have a reasonable excuse. I was scared. That ain't reasonable. So to me, a lot of absurdity is in the law. But again, like I say, make sure you understand it. Make sure you know what you sign when you go on these jobs, because here's what you sign, that I will not fail to disclose. All right, continue on with the tipping off, Deshaun.
Okay, tipping off, a person commits an offense if he knows or suspects that any disclosure under this part has been made or an action has been taken by the Financial Intelligence Unit in relation to anything under this part. And he makes a disclosure to another person, which is likely to prejudice,
Yeah.
any investigation which might be conducted following the disclosure referred to in paragraphs A1 and A2.
Okay, now this is the penalties, and this is why everybody is getting it wrong. So this one says a person commits an offense 9 to 11, but this is 13 and 14. So we have to go down to the second part. A person commits an offense 12 to 14 is liable. Go ahead with the conviction.
Press that. Oh, a
Section 2.
person, okay, a person who commits an offense under section 12 to 14 is liable on summary conviction to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 years or to a fine not exceeding $500,000 or to both, or conviction or indictment to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 20 years or to a fine or to both.
Okay, so that when you sign up to work at a financial institution, this is what you agree to. I will not fail to disclose, and I will not tip the customer off. Should you fail to disclose and they can prove it, or should you tip the customer off, you could go to jail for 12 years. And the company will get a fine not exceeding $500,000. And if you get convicted or indicted, then you could go up to 20 years. All right? So that's what I'm saying. Know where you work, know your job description, know your policies and your procedures, because the hackers and scammers are smarter than us. And our only defense is to be able to speak knowledgeably when the police comes in, or you go to jail. Okay? So again, just so you could look at the laws and have a visual of the type of terminology. And even when we speak on crimes, in this, they refer to crimes as identified risk. All right. And so you have to know the terminology. We say crimes, we say cybercrime, theft, smuggling, drug dealing. The law says identified risk offenses. All right. So know those different terminologies, because we'll be here looking for crimes and that word ain't nowhere in here. Unless they telling you if you commit a crime, what will happen to you. Okay. So that is POCA, the proceeds of crime. And then there are these other acts as well. All of these make up the anti-money laundering framework. These are the laws that protect the country from being infiltrated. Once the country is infiltrated or your organization is infiltrated, these laws where the charges come from to charge the people who committed the crime. All right. And so one of the laws is the Travelers Currency Declaration Act of 215, and that one just had to be amended because what happened was Miss Bullet, good doctor, Mussy was running away from her husband who just died 2 weeks ago. God rest his soul, my two good doctors. But she was running away from him, and she got a suitcase and she took $200,000 in US cash and she put it in the suitcase. Now, I don't know if any of you ever traveled on the domestic side of the airport where you go to Cuba and Jamaica and to Canada. Any of you ever traveled on that side?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
On that side, before the law was amended in 2018, if you went internationally, of course, you had to declare over $10,000. Well, she husband used to be a politician, so she obviously knew the law. And so she went to the domestic side to go to Jamaica. And so she put this $200,000 in US cash in a suitcase, and she put it through the, what you call it, the little checker, or the whatever you put it through, the scanner. And they saw the money, and so they immediately confiscated the suitcase and they arrested her, sent her to the airport police station. Now, at that time, my husband was politically inclined, and even though she was trying to run away from him, they called the airport and they said, bring her money and let her go. And everybody say, oh, it's because she in with the government. But really, at that time, our law said U.S. Customs requires you to declare $10,000, not Bahamian customs. And so, therefore, she did not commit a crime because she was not going to the U.S. And so that was one of the the loopholes in our laws that the international regulators saw. And of course, they wanted to blacklist us for that. So we had to amend it to say, once you leave the Bahamas, you must declare the source of funds. All right. So that's even if you go in a group. And apparently the casinos must be working with the airport, because we had I think about 2 years ago, 4 guys did won $30,000 during spring break, and they decided that they was going through Canada on the local side, and they said they could split up the money, and each of them had below 10,000, and it was found out they was traveling together, and they all got arrested. The money was confiscated, and they had to pay like $2,000 to get let go. Weeks later, somebody else won $100,000 at Bahama Casino. Same scenario. They tried to go to Jamaica, and they were stopped. The money was confiscated, and they had to pay a fine. So just declare. If you have more than $10,000 cash, just declare. All right, and don't go to jail, and don't get your money confiscated. All right, Camille, go ahead.
What did they do with the confiscated money? And then also, if you were to declare, I won this money gambling in a casino, what happens then?
The gaming board gives you a letter to travel.
So you have to go there before you go to the airport.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this something that you're told when you receive the funds?
Yeah. Once you win a certain amount, I guess they are supposed to know the customer, know especially if you're international. Yeah, so yeah, of course, if you in the casinos, they know that you're international. They give you a letter, but you have to still declare it. But they send that same copy of the letter to the airport, so you better declare it. And a lot of the people, it just ain't safe. They feel like they could get robbed. Not that they didn't any criminality, but they just scared. But you lose, so you better declare it.
So what did they do with the money when they confiscated?
And that's what I was saying earlier, Camille. That's why financial crime is so high, because governments make millions of dollars every year on drug money, on they sell all the cocaine to the hotel, to the hospitals and stuff like that. They just make millions of dollars off of criminality. They keep it, the country keeps it. At the end of the year, they put it in their P&L.
Miss Paula,
Another question. Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Camille. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so say I win the $100,000 and the casino sends the letter to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm international. I'm from, I guess, anywhere else around the world, but I have family here. How do I say this? How would they look at it if, say, I distribute the funds to different family members to deposit, and then they send it to my bank account for me, for me traveling with cash?
Yeah. So again, with wires, you could have people do that for you, but again, the banks may flag one or two of them and ask you to wire. And again, wiring fees are very expensive. So that's why people take the cash. They take the risk to take the cash. So it's only if you have cash. If you walk in with the cash on your person, then you must declare. But if you don't have cash, then that's fine. Because remember, there's a verification process at the bank. You can't just deposit that money
So
if
even
it's
with
not
the
within your profile.
so when I go to check in, sorry for asking so many
No,
questions.
go ahead,
When
go
I go
ahead.
to check in, does something come up in the system with the letter saying that I should have this fund, I should have these funds,
You
or
may have it, and to check you if you don't declare it.
so if I don't have the funds, there'll be no question as to
Then
whether
there would be no
that.
question you go through. No, I didn't. I
Okay,
deposited the money before
okay,
I came. But if you walk in with the money on your person, then you must declare it.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Kelly, you had a question?
Not really. I retract.
Okay, all right. Deshaun?
No, is there a fee to declare? Like you said that the gaming board give you a letter. Is
Not that I know of. Not that I know there's a fee. You just have to declare. People just don't declare.
I
It's
I
literally a form you fill out.
I think that's what have me on, like, just trying to understand, like, if there isn't a fee, the money isn't being taxed. You're not gonna take any money from me. You're probably gonna ask me, hey, where I get this from? Why just not declare? Like, I'm
Because
confused.
people just they don't want to go through the hassle. They scared. They don't want nobody to know they have the money on them. You know, most of them are not criminals. They won the money legitimately at the casino. But that's what people is do is think that they get, a lot of people, because I counsel some young people coming up at school. I try to say, go get your driver's license, go do this. You know how many people just I could pay the $500 for the license. I say, please don't do that. Please, the driving test is $50. It's very easy to get. They say, Miss Bullet, too much black tape. A lot of people just rather go the street way. We trained up a nation of people who just rather go the street way. And I try to explain to them, you see all these little cars on the road, you see all these accidents. This is my group, my year of people that paid that $500 that never learn how to drive properly. Please. Okay, and that's what happened. We never think about the long-term effect. Okay, so try to do things the right way. Y'all, please train up your kids to do this. It's a lot of black tape out there when you try to do things properly, but try to train them up to do things properly. That's essentially what happened.
It's red tape, Miss Fuller.
Yeah, I say black. I call it black tape now because it's just been too much. It's really been too much. All right, Anthony.
All right. Just wanted to play devil's advocate for a bit. Uh, I understand that, and I agree with you. But we also need to speak to how the government and I guess our lackluster systems incentivize criminality.
Yep.
Because let me use this as an example. I'm originally from Nassau, but I went to live for some time in Abaco. It is cheaper to just pay for your license in Abaco. I'm not saying that I did. I'm just saying that it's cheaper
Use one of
because
them small car
you have to.
drivers that taking
No,
over the
no, ma'am.
road.
I got a Volvo. I got a Volvo. But no, seriously, like you have to catch a ride down to Cooperstown. That's a long drive. You got to rent a car. Like the system over there that they have in place, it's cheaper for you just to go there and buy someone lunch and just get your license that way. We
Listen,
have a
I
lot of
agree.
lackluster systems that incentivize criminality. We can't say that we're fighting this thing and giving life to it in the same breath. That's insanity.
Okay, well, I that's why I want y'all to become the government to change these stuff because
My
y'all live these issues every day,
my,
and
my
so y'all
my good brother,
know
Mr. Kelly, was going to respond.
y'all know what needs to be done, and this is why I'm saying your country needs your help. All right, these problems have gotten out of control because we turn a blind eye to them for so much years. Please fix these 40-year-old problems. That's what Miss Bullet said. I putting the whole country on your backs. We need y'all to help us wash away the F&M and the PLP.
I Miss Bullet, like Anthony was saying, and this has been my thought for so long. Like, the Bahamas was originally run by pirates.
Ah,
Like this is
originally.
integrated. Yeah, like our country is just pirates. Like so it's
And in
literally
our blood. It's in
it
our
in there.
blood.
Yeah, like it's just there. Like this been happening before
Before you all
time.
born.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like that's just the country. And it just progress and evolve. So like it's sad, but literally I've been like that's been my thought for so many years. Like, but we just is a pirate
Okay, but
town.
we know this, right? And history is always important. So when are we going to fix, we can't fix the history, but I mean, when are we going to make a difference? How much longer are we going to accept it?
It's so deeply integrated, Miss Bullet, until it's almost like impossible to
No,
like.
but it ain't. If each of us work together and do our part and be intentional, one day that history could be we renewed, or we have to establish something new. We
They can
can't.
keep you out, Miss Bullet. The
Yeah,
one
but I know
person
that.
they can keep that one person out. Prime example,
Listen, it have
the
to be enough of
Hell
us. It's
yeah.
more of them than us right now. So
you're right.
we have to beat them. We can't join them. And I
Prime
think
example, Miss Bullet.
because it's so tough, we just joining them.
Why we still paying why the light bill is so high when our country has sun and sea. Sun, literally 365 days a year. When the government say, hey, we spending too much money on fuel, let's integrate some solar panels where the government feeding off that. Like, and it's because
Kelly, because my cousin owned the oil
that's what
company.
they
That's
saying. They
why.
on it. This is what I'm saying now, Miss Bullet. They own these things, so they're never gonna do it because it's gonna cut them out.
And so that's why I
Agree.
said
Agree.
eliminate the F&M, the PLP, the CUI, anybody who's been in power and their children should be banned from running because we don't want them seeing antics. And then yeah, and we need educated, ethical, Anthony, with that book you reading, ethical people with integrity who actually
Miss
care about the country and who can make a difference.
Miss Bullet, I'm inclined to agree with you. I once thought this way myself. Living in the Bahamas, coming back from the States and looking at a bunch of things, I've become a cynic when it comes to being in this country because you stand up for the nail that stands out gets hammered down.
Of
You
course.
stand up for people in this country and you try to get them to see the light. Like you literally can be fought down by your own people for trying to help them. And you know what's crazy? It's weird when you're not in the position where you're living paycheck to paycheck, like you have a decent wage, you could survive, but you're still looking at this thing saying, hey, you know what, this isn't right. I want something until we are all free, no one is.
You're
And
right.
and
And so
and you're doing
Anthony,
that for people who literally don't even care about any, never mind.
yeah, you're right.
These
They
people
don't care. And
ungrateful.
so this is
Let them
why I'm
suffer.
saying network with these people in the class, like-minded people who have the same belief system, who see that this has gone on too long, who refuse to join them. Right now, when we just give up and say it's too much of that, we now have to be more than them. They are more than us right now. We have to beat them. We cannot join them because what they doing is not sustainable, Anthony. Right?
I agree,
Okay,
but
okay. So what do we do? Perish? Do we perish along with them, or do we make a difference? We have to make a difference. We have to. Absolutely have to. All right, Kelly. So we got to get you a lot of pills for the headaches. All right, but we have to make a difference. We have to make a difference. All right, and we're on the right track with being educated, with networking. We need that Ben Laden network. We need to know the right people, get the right people in position, and one day we will see a change. But part of the problem is they saying we need these same players over and over again because nobody else stepping up to the plate. All right, we have to be the change that we want to see. That's where we are. We have to be the change. So I dead serious about the government and your next steps and doing some service for the country. I willing to help. Are you on board? I have 2 people now I see out there campaigning. That's what we have to do. We have to do it ourselves. And then we have to raise up the next generation to not be like them, but like
As
us.
I see the flash saying the battery is running low and the plug-in. I don't know why I'm doing that.
Kevin, you unmute your mic?
You know
Okay.
what?
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, so that's chapter 4. Chapter 4 then says these laws allow or involve outlining the crime of money laundering and underlining criminal offense, outlining terrorist financing, outlining which businesses are subject to AML CTF laws. They create requirements that reporting entities must follow. They create a government agency to receive suspicious matters. That's the FIU, the Financial Intelligence Unit. They create a regulator to oversee compliance with AML CTF legislation. And then they name the law enforcement and government bodies that will have access to these reports received about suspicious matters related to money laundering and terrorist financing. And that's, like I said again, the Financial Intelligence Unit. All right. Okay, any questions on chapter 4?
No, mom.
No?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right, so just need a volunteer to read case 1. And case 1 just gives us some advice on what we should do now that we're on this journey. All right? And so all of you non-newspaper people, did somebody volunteer? We had Anthony did an awesome job last week. He got all his points. So
I could volunteer.
go ahead, Camille. Thank you very much. Case 1 for us.
As soon as I find it.
Okay. Let's look for the yellow paper or the colored paper. And
Oh,
it should say
okay.
case 1 at the back of the book. Yes.
So you just became the new money laundering officer. 5 ways to help you get started. Should I read this little introduction? I could skip that way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Make time to understand your business. For an MLCO to be effective, he or she must make the time to really learn and understand the business he or she is trying to protect. Writing policies, reading suspicious reports, monitoring, and training become pointless if you do not understand the environment you are in and the needs of your peers at the front line. Take time to sit with them, engage in their day-to-day activities, and to make inquiries in regards to the challenges they face and issues with which they need help. Ask and be prepared to listen to what they have to say. That will help you truly understand what they are doing and how you can become a valuable and necessary partner. There is no shame in training. People sometimes think that when they get their dream job, they can avoid further training, mainly because they seem to have already proven that they are up to the challenge. I have news for you. This is not the case. There should be no shame in receiving training. Training should be continuous, even if you are repeating yourself. Try to find training opportunities in your area, in your town, in your country, and internationally. Choose carefully and try to find those seminars or workshops that will help you in successfully discharging your duties. Trainings can even provide you with ideas.
Hello?
I don't know if something happened with Camille. Camille, are you there?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Wow, at what point did I go off?
Something about training.
Okay. Trainings can even provide you with ideas for conducting your own training for your colleagues. There are many training opportunities on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing, but there are also more specialized ones about the role of the MLCO and writing MLCO reports. It is important to realize and appreciate that the costs for such trainings are very small when compared to the personal benefits you will receive, and more importantly, for your organization. Seek resources outside of your immediate environment. Do not concentrate just on the local legislation and the relevant regulatory guidelines or directives. Those are obviously important, but they are not enough. It is equally, if not more important, to broaden your horizons. The European AML directives apply across all of Europe, so you will find that there is more guidance out there that will help you understand your duties and how to be more effective. There is also useful guidance from US regulators the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Australia, New Zealand, and more. Just use Google search. A number of professional bodies also offer free subscription newsletters on know your customer and AML, as well as general compliance and ethic matters. The MLCR rule requires a lot of critical thinking and analysis, and accordingly, I would advise you to set up your own library of guidance notes, training materials, presentations, articles, and case studies. Organize these into folders and refer to them when you are uncertain about a situation or when you feel like confirming something before you make a business decision or provide advice. Also, there are some useful and current books on AML and the CTF, as well as general compliance management. They can be helpful both as a tool to get you started, but also as a reference from time to time. Memberships to professional organizations. Nowadays, one can find quite a few professional membership organizations for AML compliance professionals. One of the best ones to subscribe to is the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists. Becoming a member of one or more of those organizations opens the doors to abundant resources and practical tools to help you perform your duties and excel in what you do. Some of these organizations also offer training opportunities, seminars, and conferences you can attend to become and stay current with what is happening in the AML world. Specifically, ACAMS offers the CAMS certification, the gold standard in AML certifications, and also organizes a number of conferences in Europe and the rest of the world. These are especially useful to anti-financial crime professionals. Network. Attending relevant conferences in your country or abroad is a great way to meet with peers. Networking is very important in today's fast-paced environment. It is vital to exchange ideas, to share resources and experiences, and to seek help. Many of the professional membership organizations described offer local chapters or forums where members can gather and organize relevant and specialized trainings, exchange ideas on the way they do things, and even have fun together. Also, social media is very important. Use LinkedIn or even Facebook and Twitter to follow professional bodies and professional membership organizations that share important news as they happen. You can then share what you have learned with your colleagues. Your colleagues will appreciate the valuable and relevant information you provide. Contrary to popular belief, MLCOs can be an exciting, popular, and innovative person, and a valuable asset to his or her colleagues and their organization. Remember to be open and welcoming, and embrace the challenges and prospects of your position and be prepared to make a difference.
Okay. Thank you for that, Camille. Very good. All right. So, like they say, organize your library, especially if you're going on your journey. You will definitely need this intro book. You will need the intermediate book when you get to ICA. So take as much notes as possible. Keep all your papers because once you would have done your research, trust me, you're going to need that information again, depending on which questions they ask you in ICA. So get your library organized. We already talked about networking and the importance of it. ACAMS is good, but it's the US version. ICA is the UK version. I don't agree that ACAMS is the gold standard because we have UK banks or we have Canadian banks that American bank, I think the only one we have here is Citibank. So the ICA would be more applicable once you work in the Bahamas, which all of us do, right? And so I normally encourage students to go on the ICA journey. All right. So, get to know the right people, get your soft skills intact. You must always be approachable. You must always be seen as credible and confidential. Once you lose your credibility, nobody trusts you, right? You have to leave that institution and go somewhere else. So always remain ethical, act with integrity, be approachable, have that open door policy, and you have to keep abreast the typologies and skills. You dress up, you go to these conferences, and you meet the right people. All right. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
New.
No? Okay, guys. So Have a great week. For those who haven't done your homework, question 3 is and 2 is available. Please do your homework. Make sure that we're on the same page. Next week is our 3rd week. We only have 2 weeks left after that. So make sure we are all on the same page. Cindy, go ahead with your question.
I have a few questions. One, I didn't get the welcome email with the attachments.
Okay, could you drop your email in the chat?
Okay.
How is the WhatsApp group going? No comment?
It's okay.
No,
It's
no
okay.
newspaper? No newspaper clippings? No invitation to the civic organization? We don't need this 5 points? Okay, okay. I trying to help you take the pressure off.
Oh, but I guess I could remind everybody else who isn't in the group to send their numbers so they can be added.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, go ahead, Cindy. I sent the email. Just let me know you got it.
Okay, I'll check now. And I just sent my number in the chat.
Okay. All right, yeah. So y'all, like I said, get to know each other by the end of the class. You should know everybody in the class. Attend the civic organization together. Everybody bring their 5 cents and get their 5 points, and make sure you go out there and meet the right people and introduce yourself. Especially the persons who want to cross over into the field. Yes, it's who you know. It's really, really who you know.
Oh,
All
my
right.
next question is, where do I find the homework questions?
In that welcome note on the instruction sheet.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is where the homework is, and Miguel attach the recording from the first class. So make sure you listen to that so you get all the information. These 4 questions are also past exam questions.
Did
Okay.
you say about the recordings? Where do we access them?
With the link that Miguel sent today for you to get into the class, the recording is
Oh,
attached.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, guys. So have a productive week. And like I said, make sure get your homework in and make some plans to go to your civic organization. And we'll see you next week to cover chapters 4 and 5.
Good night.
Okay,
All
good
right. Good
night.
night. Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.